Dan Byer, why is America having a good day today?
Because the Cowboys lost?
That's the lie. The Cowboys lost.
Okay, no one's having a good day over here from that. Thank you very much, Doug.
That's a great day. Oh, my goodness. Setting your watch to the Cowboys' loss in the playoffs and the meltdown that ensues is one of the great joys of American society. Think about it. Think about your favorite things that happen seemingly every year, right? Go through it. Christmas is amazing, right? Family and gifts and the holiday, plus you got sports. I love it when it's beautiful and sunny outside, and finally that first day where it feels like summer. But that Monday after the Cowboys lose in a playoff Sunday, well, that's a good day. That's a good day. I don't know why. I don't hate the Cowboys. I don't love the Cowboys. But damn, I love watching them lose, knowing my job's going to be kind of fun. Because, unless you're a Cowboys fan, you take great joy in it. I'm trying to rack my brain. I have some thoughts on it. Jay Stu, why do you think that so many people enjoy watching the Cowboys lose?
Because if you're going to call yourself America's team, there's a presumption there. You're assuming that everybody loves you. You can't call yourself that. And I think there's a natural resentment from everybody who doesn't like the Cowboys to hate them even more. And plus their owner and their quarterback, they're easy to hate, right?
Dak Prescott's easy to hate?
Yeah, I root for him to fail. I'm not sure why. I think it's something about the disingenuousness, the phoniness. I don't know.
You think he's Russell Wilson?
He's not quite there yet, but no, I never quite believe a word he says.
Dan Byer, why do you think people enjoy watching the Cowboys fail?
Jerry Jones is the reason, I think.
What about him?
They just don't like him. They think he's arrogant. They haven't liked him for years. That's why.
Okay. I think that's really I think it's overall arrogance. That would be my thing. Cowboy fans are arrogant. Now, part of it is Cowboy fans, many of them who are our age, in the mid-'90s, in the middle of our either young adulthood or childhood, they were the best, okay? They were the best on earth, and it wasn't really close. And they became super arrogant about it, and they've been kind of living on that for a long time. And do I think Jerry Jones is arrogant? Yeah, but he doesn't strike me as the most arrogant owner. I don't know. It'd be a really good case study to try and hey, why do you hate the Cowboys? I don't know, I just hate them. And even their fans, why do we hate okay, we hate their fans, but we hate everybody's fans. Eagles fans are much more hateable because they're just nasty. They don't seem like good human beings with the things they say to other players. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm taking a small percentage of it. But the Eagles fans, they know no one likes them. They don't actually care. Cowboy fans, nobody likes them, and they're it's just because they love their team, right? It just strikes me as super interesting that, and I'm just as big a culprit. I walked into a Buffalo Wild Wings with my son yesterday, and we walk in, and it's the first quarter, and we're watching this debacle take place. And we're both just cackling with joy. And then we're on social media, and we're watching the memes and all this other stuff, and we're like, this is really happening. And I don't know, I think there's a Notre Dame football aspect to it, a Duke basketball aspect to it, but Duke has been more successful here the last 20 years than the Cowboys. Notre Dame football, frankly, has been probably a little bit more successful than the Cowboys. But whatever it is, I don't know, we just take great joy in it. Now, there's a lot of different layers to it, and we'll dig in with our guests. We'll ask as well. It does feel like the very easy call is to fire Mike McCarthy. And part of it is, I don't want to say he took the job under false pretenses, but there was a lot of BS when he took the job. Right? Remember, he was the guy who came out and said, hey, I watched every snap of every play that the Cowboys ran the last year when I was out of work. And then when he got the job, he's like, yeah, not really. You know? Not really. And remember, this was his year where he was calling the plays. And they had an outstanding offense. And they had a great offense last year when he wasn't calling the plays, when Kellen Moore was calling the plays. Here's Mike McCarthy summing up the loss.
Clearly, the best thing they did, in my opinion, coming in was the deep play action game. And then, obviously the protection was there. He was able to buy time, extend plays. And, we just, we gave up too many of them. We did not play to our capabilities the way we've been playing, particularly at home, and we're disappointed.
So there's a lot to it, and I'll get more into this in the podcast, but I do think that one thing we can't lose sight of is Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers went in and whooped their ass. Like, that happened. I understand that I'm a sports radio host. I've been doing this a long time, been doing this for 21 years. I get you don't bury the lead. The lead is the Cowboys. What do you do with Dak? What do you do with McCarthy? What does Jerry Jones do? He's the wild card in this whole thing, right? But maybe the story should be Jordan Love. Should be the Packers coaching staff. Look, that defense, Beyer can tell you, because not only does he obviously do this and host his own show on Sundays, but he hosts a fantasy podcast. Like, you'd always want to pick a guy who was playing against the Packers because the Packers defense stinks. It has not been a good unit this year. And they made two gigantic plays on pick sixes that forever changed history. And Jordan Love, who came into the season with a ton of naysayers, right? Like Colin said what he had heard from a lot of people. Kid can't play. And there were times this year where you're like, I'm not sure he can play. And if you want to say that the Packers truly believe, did they? His contract for next year was an extension. It's $8 million. They didn't pick up his fifth year. They didn't offer him a long-term extension. It's $8 million. That's backup. That's high-level backup money. No one knew if he could play. And there were times this year we didn't. He balled out. The team played well. The defense stepped up. The Packers, they feel like a footnote in this story because the story is the Cowboys. Here's Mike McCarthy when asked about his job status.
Jerry had said we'll take it game by game regarding your job status. Do you think this could lead to a coaching change?
I think the biggest thing is, we're disappointed. I got a whole team in the locker rooms that's hurting, and that's I haven't thought past the outcome of this game.
I actually think that's a fair answer. Tim Kalishaw obviously asked the question. You can tell by Tim's voice. But I think that's a totally fair answer, right? Like, hey, man, I don't know. And it's interesting, the easy thing is always to replace the coach. And there's a lot of answers out there. I would love to see Belichick with that team. I think that would be amazing, right? You bring the winningest NFL coach ever into a team that wants to say they're America's team, but hasn't been able to win in the playoffs since the mid-90s, right? But we have to have a Dak Prescott discussion, don't we? He was bad. Like, their team, I would say, if I was honest, I thought the Packers played to win, and the Cowboys came in kind of arrogant, to Dan Byers' point. And at some point, they got super tight, and then it became to not lose. And what did Mater say in Cars, right? Like, you can't go forward looking in your rearview mirror. I forget what Mater said. It's been a long time since I watched Cars, although it's a great movie, great flick. The point is, the Cowboys, they got thumped, and at some point. And I know you're going to sit there and go well, Dak threw for 400 yards. He had 2 pick sixes in the first half. That thing was kind of a wrap. It's kind of a wrap. But when you put it on the back of how he played in San Francisco this year, how he played in the playoffs when they lost last year, how many times are we going to do this to where you're we're asking something of a guy who might just not be good enough at it? And there is a reasonable fear of, hey, we have a quarterback. He's good. Do you know how hard it is to find the next quarterback? I get it. I do. I understand. You have a lot of sweat equity with Dak Prescott. But when people say everything's on the table, everything has to be on the table. Here's Jerry Jones on coach and player changes after a game like this.
I don't want to get into any of the addressing of any aspects of any part of it, from the coaching to the players to what's around the corner. On a personal basis, I'm floored, and so not that there's any world's smallest violin for me being floored. I get that, I understand that, and I know where the responsibility starts and ends, and I've got that real clear, and I know that. But that's not the point. The point is that I'm disappointed for everybody.
Yeah, listen, I think that's as sound and as measured as you're ever going to hear Jerry Jones. And people only sound that way, okay, when they're in shock, in mourning, or they're angry, right? Right? You speak at a normal cadence when you're loose and when you're okay with things. When you don't, when you're really upset or you've gone through something really traumatic or you're really upset, you measure your words and you say things like this. Did anybody, J. Stu, did you hear that? Like, you're pretty good. I mean, obviously you've been doing audio stuff for a long time. Like, did you hear that at all? Like, it feels there's an inner anger, shock sort of thing to his voice.
Yeah, no, I think there's that. I think there's a lot of that, but I also think that Jerry Jones is going to talk to people close to him, whether it be former players, former coaches, and I think he's also an owner that reads the tea leaves. I think he's going to see and listen. I think he's going to be doing a lot of listening over the next couple of days. That's what it feels like to me when I hear that sound.
It's crazy. Okay, so if you were going to ask me, what would you do? Well, this is an easy one to me. It's a really easy one to me. I fire Mike McCarthy. I hire Bill Belichick. Listen, is there an issue with fit? Sure. Is there an issue with egos? Okay, fine. Like, all of that stuff. But if you want the best outcome, you hire the best. I mean, again, this is a small aside, but Belichick is famous for, in practice, watering footballs, doing all these things condition-wise, whatever. And Mike McDaniel's Miami Dolphins lose to the Kansas City Chiefs. And they didn't go up to Kansas City early and practice in the cold. Instead, they practiced in 70 degrees. And they looked like a team that practiced in 70 degrees playing in negative 30 degrees, right? Like, I don't know if they would have won that game, but it's in terms of preparation. Like, you have a guy who's literally done everything you want to accomplish, and he's out of work. It's not that hard. And then you allow him to decide, can you win with Dak? That's what I do. I understand he's older. I understand he's a curmudgeon. I understand that there's all kinds of things. By the way, how great would it be for people who hate the Dallas Cowboys? Because if you hate the Dallas Cowboys, you probably think Bill Belichick cheated his way to 6 Super Bowl titles and 9 Super Bowl appearances. I didn't say it's an easy fix, but that is an easy adjustment to make. How can you possibly wake up in the morning, look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I got a guy who's won 1 Super Bowl and struggled with some of his decision-making, but I bought into it. I can keep him. I can fire him and hire anybody. And I have a guy who's the most qualified, the most successful, motivated to prove people wrong that he's got one more run in him. And I don't hire him.